Liam had spent nearly a decade turning a small, forgotten plot of land at the edge of Maple Creek into a cozy cabin resort. It wasn't large or fancy, but every cabin told a story. Each wooden wall had been sanded and polished by Liam's own hands, every window frame painted with careful attention. He had chosen the softest pine for the floors, installed fireplaces that smelled of cedar when lit, and built small stone paths that led guests through flower beds filled with wildflowers. The resort had a charm that city life could never offer. Families came on weekends to escape their crowded apartments. Children ran barefoot through open fields, squealing as they chased each other, while parents relaxed on the porches, sipping coffee and enjoying the quiet. Guests often stayed for days, reluctant to leave the peaceful surroundings. Liam loved seeing these moments. He felt proud, knowing that something he had built from scratch was bringing joy to others. But not everyone in Maple Creek shared Liam's enthusiasm. The Homeowners Association, the HOA, had always watched him with suspicion. Every small decision he made, the color of the cabins, the style of the fences, even the arrangement of flower beds, was criticized. They claimed he had violated aesthetic rules or ignored community standards, though most of these rules seemed vague and open to interpretation. Liam tried to remain polite. He attended HOA meetings, listened carefully, and even made minor adjustments when it seemed reasonable. He wanted to avoid conflict, but the tension never eased. The HOA seemed determined to assert authority over him, though he had followed every written guideline. Then, one bright morning, Liam received a letter that made his stomach churn. The HOA claimed he was violating regulations by allowing guests to use the fire pit area and the small outdoor stage without paying an additional fee. They demanded he either stop using these areas for guest activities or pay a substantial fine. Liam read the letter again, trying to keep calm. He had never charged extra for using the fire pit or stage. Guests used them freely, and it was part of the experience he offered. Liam took a deep breath and replied, simply and firmly, "No, I will not pay this fine." The response set off an immediate storm. At the next HOA meeting, he could feel their eyes on him, cold and calculating. Mrs. Fairbanks, a tall woman with icy gray hair and a sharp gaze, spoke first. "You do not understand, Liam. We have authority here. You cannot simply ignore us." Liam smiled faintly, keeping his voice steady. "I respect rules I can follow. This is one I cannot." For the next few weeks, things grew worse. Strange incidents began to occur around the resort. Tools disappeared from the storage shed. The water pump broke without explanation. One night, Liam discovered scorch marks near the corner of his main cabin. Someone had clearly tried to start a fire, though it had failed to catch. Liam called the fire department, but no suspects were identified. It was clear someone wanted to intimidate him, and only one group had the motive. Then, one evening, the unthinkable happened. Liam had gone into town for supplies and returned just before sunset. A thick column of smoke rose into the sky. Panic gripped him as he raced down the driveway. Flames were devouring the main cabin, roaring and sending sparks into the darkening sky. By the time firefighters arrived, half of the resort was reduced to ashes. HOA members had gathered nearby, ostensibly watching the property. They froze when Liam arrived. For a moment, no one spoke. Liam's face remained calm, almost eerily so, as he surveyed the damage. Inside, however, anger and disbelief churned. Everything he had built with his own hands, years of work, dreams, and memories, was gone. Then Liam did something unexpected. From his jacket pocket, he pulled a thick folder filled with carefully organized papers. He opened it slowly, revealing spreadsheets and financial records. The room seemed to shrink as he spoke in a quiet, deliberate voice. "This," he said, pointing to the documents, "is your HOA budget from last year. Every penny accounted for: salaries, administrative expenses, maintenance, everything." Faces around him went pale. Mrs. Fairbanks looked like she had seen a ghost. Liam's calmness contrasted sharply with the chaos of the fire behind him. He continued, his voice steady and firm, "I know exactly what you've done. I know who is responsible for this, and I will not allow it to go unchecked." There was no yelling, no dramatic outburst, just a quiet intensity that made the room feel tense. The power he wielded wasn't from anger or authority, it was from knowledge and preparation. For years, he had quietly tracked every irregularity, every rule broken, every suspicious action from the HOA. And now, in one silent moment, that knowledge gave him the strength to stand tall among people who had tried to intimidate him. Finally, he closed the folder and looked at the ashes of his resort. Smoke still rose in thin ribbons, curling into the night sky. Liam's heart ached, but underneath the grief, determination began to grow. He would rebuild. He would make the resort stronger and better than ever. And when he did, the HOA could never threaten him again. As he turned away, the cool evening air filling his lungs, he whispered to himself, "They thought they could scare me. They were wrong. This isn't the end, it's just the beginning." The morning after the fire, Liam walked among the ruins of his resort. The air still smelled faintly of smoke, and blackened wood crumbled under his feet. His heart ached, but he forced himself to focus. He knew grieving too long would not help. The cabins were gone, but he still had his resolve, his knowledge, and his vision. The fire could take his buildings, but it could not take his dream. Liam decided to begin rebuilding immediately. He called his few trusted friends, people who had helped him in the past. Anna, who had always managed guest services, was the first to arrive. She looked at the ashes and then at Liam, her eyes wide with shock. "Liam, it's all gone," she whispered. But Liam shook his head, determination in his eyes. "It's not gone, Anna. It's just the beginning of something better." Word spread quickly in Maple Creek. Some neighbors expressed sympathy, while others, especially those connected with the HOA, avoided him. Liam didn't mind. He had never built the resort for the approval of others. His guests loved it, and that mattered most. The first step was securing the land. Liam fenced off the burned area to prevent further accidents. He worked late into the evening, moving debris, clearing burnt wood, and making sure the site was safe. His hands were blistered and his muscles ached, but he felt alive in a way he hadn't in weeks. Each shovel of dirt, each pile of ash removed, felt like a small victory. While cleaning, Liam noticed signs of the HOA's involvement. Certain piles of debris were carefully arranged, suggesting someone had tried to direct the fire toward the main cabins. He clenched his fists but didn't let anger control him. He knew that any reckless action now could make things worse. Instead, he focused on gathering evidence. Photographs, burned fragments, scorched tools, all were carefully catalogued. He would not face the HOA blindly again. By midday, Anna had returned with supplies. "We need a plan, Liam," she said, spreading a notebook on the ground. "We can't just rebuild the same way. We need to think bigger, stronger, smarter." Liam nodded. "Exactly. This fire is a challenge, but it can also be a chance. We'll make this resort better than it ever was." Liam decided to involve the community this time. He contacted several local craftsmen who had previously admired his work and asked if they would help rebuild. To his relief, many agreed. Word had spread about the fire, and while some feared the HOA, others admired Liam's determination. Slowly, volunteers arrived: carpenters, landscapers, even families who had stayed at the resort offered to help. Their presence filled Liam with hope. As they began to rebuild, Liam kept careful records of every expense, every purchase, every decision. He wanted nothing to be questioned. When the HOA inevitably tried to interfere again, he would be ready. His mind, which had been clouded by shock the night of the fire, was now focused on strategy. Yet, rebuilding was not easy. The fire had destroyed nearly everything, and insurance money was limited. Liam spent long hours calculating costs, making lists, and negotiating with suppliers. Anna stayed by his side, keeping spirits high. "We can do this, Liam. We have to," she said one evening, handing him a cup of tea as they sat among the charred remains. Liam took a sip, feeling the warmth spread through him. "We will. I won't let them win." Even at night, Liam couldn't rest. He reviewed the HOA budget again, thinking carefully about the weaknesses he had discovered. Their financial records showed gaps, inconsistencies, and questionable spending. If he played his cards right, he could not only rebuild the resort but also expose their corruption. He made a silent vow: this time, the HOA would not be able to intimidate him or anyone else. The community began to notice Liam's determination. Neighbors who had once doubted him now offered small contributions: extra wood, tools, or even simple encouragement. Families who had stayed at the resort brought meals for the volunteers. Slowly, hope replaced despair. Liam felt a renewed sense of purpose. The fire had tried to break him, but instead, it had strengthened his resolve. One afternoon, while inspecting the foundations of a future cabin, Liam looked across the site. He saw Anna speaking with a carpenter, a young boy helping to move planks, and volunteers laughing as they worked together. For the first time since the fire, he smiled genuinely. This wasn't just rebuilding cabins, it was rebuilding trust, community, and resilience. Liam knew the road ahead would be long. The HOA would not stay quiet, and there would likely be more challenges. But he also knew that this time, he was ready. He had a plan, allies, and the unwavering belief that hard work and honesty would win. As the sun set over Maple Creek, painting the sky with shades of orange and gold, Liam stood among the beginnings of the new resort. Smoke had cleared, and the air smelled fresh and clean. He breathed deeply, feeling the weight of the past few days lift slightly from his shoulders. He whispered to himself, "We will rise again. Stronger. Better. Together." And for the first time since the fire, Liam truly believed it. Weeks passed, and the small resort at Maple Creek slowly began to take shape again. Fresh wood replaced the charred beams, stone paths were rebuilt, and new flower beads lined the cabins. Liam worked tirelessly, his hands calloused, his clothes always dusted with sawdust. Anna stayed close, organizing volunteers and managing supplies, keeping morale high. The community had rallied behind them, inspired by Liam's determination, and slowly the resort felt alive again. But Liam knew the HOA was still watching. Their glances from nearby lawns, their whispered conversations at meetings, reminded him that the threat had not disappeared. He could sense their frustration. They had thought the fire would destroy him, yet here he was, stronger than before. Liam decided it was time to act, but carefully. He needed to show them that he could defend himself without resorting to anger or rash actions. One afternoon, he called a meeting with Anna and a few trusted volunteers. "We've done well so far," he began, spreading maps and documents across a wooden table. "But the HOA will not stop trying to control us. They expect fear, confusion, or mistakes. We can't give them that. We need to be prepared, not just with construction, but with facts." He explained how he had carefully reviewed the HOA's budget, finding inconsistencies in their records. There were unexplained expenses, high salaries for members who did little work, and funds that had disappeared without explanation. "If we show the community these numbers, it will be clear who is responsible for abuse of power," Liam said. "But we must be patient. Timing is everything." Meanwhile, rebuilding continued. Liam supervised the construction of new cabins, designed to be stronger and more fire-resistant. Volunteers carried beams, mixed cement, and planted new gardens. Children ran freely among the fresh grass, laughing as if nothing had happened. Liam often paused to watch them, remembering how this place had always been meant to bring joy. That joy had not been destroyed, it was simply hidden beneath the ashes. Despite the progress, obstacles emerged. A storm swept through Maple Creek, damaging part of the newly rebuilt foundation. Tools went missing mysteriously, and one night, Liam found a note left in the ashes of a cabin that simply read, "Stop." It was clear the HOA or someone connected with them was still trying to intimidate him. But Liam refused to be shaken. He picked up the note, read it carefully, and placed it in a folder marked Evidence. Anna noticed his calm demeanor. "You aren't afraid?" she asked softly. Liam shook his head. "Fear doesn't help us. We act with knowledge and purpose. That note will not stop us, it only proves we are on the right track." As the resort took shape, Liam also reached out to legal experts. He consulted a lawyer who specialized in property disputes and HOA regulations. Together, they carefully documented every incident: the fire, missing tools, threatening notes, and the inconsistencies in the HOA's budget. Liam's meticulous attention to detail gave him confidence. This time, if the HOA tried to attack him again, he would be ready. Then came the first opportunity to confront them indirectly. The HOA scheduled a public meeting, intending to discuss the resort and supposedly warn the community about violations. Liam arrived early, carrying copies of the HOA budget, evidence of the fire's suspicious origin, and detailed notes about every interaction he had documented. He quietly placed the materials on a table, ensuring that anyone interested could see them. When the meeting began, the room was tense. HOA members spoke first, their voices sharp and condescending. They tried to portray Liam as reckless and careless. But when community members looked at the evidence he had prepared, the mood shifted. Faces that had once been indifferent now showed concern. The unexplained spending, the fire, the threats, it all painted a clear picture. Mrs. Fairbanks tried to regain control. "This is slander. You cannot make these claims without proof," she shouted, her voice shaking slightly. Liam stood calmly. "All the proof is here," he said, gesturing to the documents. "We are not making accusations without facts. These records speak for themselves. The community deserves transparency, and the resort deserves to exist without fear." Whispers filled the room. Some neighbors nodded in agreement, while others murmured to each other, surprised by the revelations. The HOA members grew visibly uneasy. Liam could feel their confidence slipping. They had counted on fear, but instead, they faced knowledge and truth. After the meeting, Liam walked outside into the cool evening air. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, reflecting in the creek that ran near the resort. He felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. The resort was still standing, the foundations were stronger, and for the first time, the HOA had been shown that Liam was not someone to be intimidated. Anna joined him, smiling. "You did well in there. People are starting to see the truth." Liam nodded, his eyes scanning the new cabins rising from the ground. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "We rebuild, we protect, and we show everyone that fear doesn't control us." That night, as Liam finally rested, he thought about the fire, the threats, and the challenges ahead. Each obstacle had strengthened him, each setback had taught him patience and strategy. The HOA had underestimated him once, and they would not make the same mistake again. The resort, and the community that loved it, were ready to rise stronger than ever. And in the quiet of Maple Creek, surrounded by the first signs of his restored dream, Liam whispered to himself, "We will not be broken. Not by fire, not by fear, not by anyone. We will rise, and they will see what determination can do." The next morning, Liam stood at the edge of the construction site, watching the workers continue rebuilding the resort. Sunlight glinted off the fresh wooden beams, and the scent of sawdust mixed with the smell of pine from the nearby forest. Despite the hard work, there was a sense of excitement in the air. The resort was coming back to life, stronger and more beautiful than before. Anna approached him, holding a small envelope she had found in the mailbox. "This came for you," she said, handing it over. Liam opened it carefully. Inside was a letter from one of the local families who had stayed at the resort. They praised his determination and offered their help in organizing a small fundraiser for rebuilding. Liam smiled, feeling the warmth of support. It reminded him that not all neighbors had sided with the HOA. Many were quietly rooting for him, waiting for the right moment to show their support. But the HOA remained a looming threat. Liam knew that their intimidation tactics had not stopped, they had simply shifted to quieter methods, hoping he would let his guard down. He decided it was time to be more strategic. He began meeting privately with other homeowners who had once been intimidated by the HOA. Slowly, he built a small network of allies, people who believed in fairness and transparency. They were hesitant at first, afraid of reprisals, but Liam's calm confidence convinced them that together, they could make a difference. One afternoon, while reviewing the construction plans, Liam noticed something strange. Certain areas of the resort, especially near the cabins closest to the HOA members' properties, had been marked differently. He realized the HOA might try another attempt to sabotage the rebuilding if he wasn't careful. Without panic, he adjusted the plans, adding extra fireproof materials, securing pathways, and installing small safety features that were subtle but effective. Liam was learning that anticipation was just as important as action. Meanwhile, the community began to take notice. Volunteers from nearby towns arrived, eager to help. Some brought tools, others brought food and water for the workers. Even the children contributed by helping to plant flowers and small shrubs. Liam watched them with pride. He knew this resort was more than just cabins, it was a symbol of resilience, of what a determined person could achieve when supported by others. Then came a surprising moment. One of the HOA members, a quiet man named Robert, approached Liam while he inspected the new foundation for the main cabin. I don't agree with everything the HOA has done," Robert said hesitantly. "I think they went too far with the fire and their threats. I want to help." Liam looked at him carefully, searching for any sign of deception. When he saw none, he nodded slowly. "If you're sincere, you're welcome," he said. "We need fairness, not fear. Together, we can make sure the truth is clear. Robert became a secret ally. He provided information about upcoming HOA meetings, shared internal documents, and warned Liam about any new attempts to disrupt the rebuilding. With Robert's help, Liam could anticipate moves before they happened, making each day of reconstruction smoother and safer. Despite these small victories, challenges continued. Supplies were sometimes delayed, workers got tired, and the sheer scale of rebuilding demanded constant attention. But Liam refused to let frustration take hold. Every evening, he and Anna would review progress, make new plans, and set realistic goals for the next day. Liam's calm leadership inspired everyone around him. Even volunteers who were exhausted from long days of labor kept returning, motivated by the sense of purpose and community Liam had created. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, painting the sky in warm shades of orange and pink, Liam and Anna walked through the nearly completed cabins. The fire that had destroyed the resort months ago seemed like a distant memory. New beams gleamed in the twilight, stone pathways glistened after a light rain, and the flowers planted by the children added color and life. Anna paused and looked at Liam. "You've turned this tragedy into something beautiful," she said softly. Liam smiled, though his mind was already on the next steps. "Beauty isn't just in the buildings," he replied. "It's in the people, the support, and the truth we're showing. That's what the HOA can never take away." That night, Liam reviewed the HOA documents again. He prepared a detailed report that combined the evidence of their financial irregularities, the fire incident, and testimonies from community members. He knew the next HOA meeting would be critical. This time, he would not only defend himself but also reveal the truth to everyone, leaving no room for intimidation. As he looked out over the quiet, newly rebuilt resort, Liam felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. He knew that challenges were still ahead, but he also knew that with careful planning, determination, and the support of honest people, he could face anything. The resort was no longer just a place for guests, it had become a symbol of courage, resilience, and community. And in the quiet of Maple Creek, with the first stars appearing in the sky, Liam whispered to himself, "They thought they could break me. They were wrong. Now, they will see what strength and truth can do." The day of the big HOA meeting arrived. Liam woke early, the sun rising over Maple Creek, casting a golden glow over the nearly rebuilt resort. He felt a mix of determination and calm focus. This was the moment he had been preparing for. Months of planning, rebuilding, and collecting evidence had led to today. He was ready. Anna arrived with the folder of documents, neatly organized and labeled. Volunteers who had helped rebuild cabins offered quiet support, nodding as they passed. Liam appreciated their presence. It reminded him that he was not alone in this fight. Together, they had transformed tragedy into hope. The meeting took place in the town hall, a large room with rows of chairs and a long table at the front for HOA members. Residents of Maple Creek filled the seats, some curious, some skeptical, but all attentive. Liam and Anna entered last, carrying the folder of evidence. When the HOA members saw them, their confident expressions faltered slightly. They had expected a broken, intimidated man. Instead, Liam stood tall, calm, and prepared. Mrs. Fairbanks was first to speak, her voice sharp and commanding. "We are here to discuss the violations at Mr. Liam's resort. It is clear he has ignored our regulations and acted recklessly, putting the community at risk." She looked around the room, hoping to see agreement. Instead, she noticed uncertain glances and quiet whispers among the residents. Liam rose slowly. His voice was steady, calm, and confident. "Thank you, Mrs. Fairbanks. I have prepared information for everyone here today so they can understand the full situation. The resort was damaged by fire, a fire that was not accidental. I have collected evidence showing this, along with records of the HOA's financial activities, which demonstrate inconsistencies and misuse of funds. He opened the folder and began presenting, showing documents, photographs, and notes. Murmurs spread through the room. People leaned forward, examining the records. The missing funds, the unexplained expenses, and the evidence of attempts to intimidate Liam were clear. Even residents who had once supported the HOA looked concerned. Liam spoke without anger, only presenting facts. Each detail was precise and verifiable, leaving little room for denial. Mrs. Fairbanks tried to interrupt. "This is false. You have no proof of these claims," she shouted, her voice rising. Liam did not flinch. "The proof is here," he said calmly, holding up the documents. "I have photographs, receipts, and witness statements. The community deserves transparency. It deserves honesty. And it deserves a resort that exists without fear or intimidation." A few residents began asking questions, and Liam answered them clearly. He explained the fire incident, the missing tools, the threatening notes, and the ways the HOA had attempted to control the resort. With each answer, the room grew quieter, the weight of truth settling over everyone. Robert, the HOA member who had secretly sided with Liam, spoke next. "I can confirm what Liam is saying," he said. His voice was firm but calm. "I have seen irregularities in the HOA's spending. I have seen actions taken against Liam that were unnecessary and unfair. The community deserves fairness, and I support his efforts to rebuild and maintain transparency." Mrs. Fairbanks turned pale. Her confidence was crumbling. Liam noticed the subtle shift and continued presenting calmly, clearly, and logically. He did not shout. He did not accuse. He simply showed facts, documented evidence, and logical conclusions. The residents could see the truth, and it was impossible to ignore. By the end of the meeting, the atmosphere had changed completely. The HOA members, who had tried to intimidate and control, were now silent, caught in a web of their own actions. Residents applauded quietly, not out of mockery, but out of support for Liam's courage, honesty, and determination. They recognized that he had faced danger, sabotage, and unfair treatment and had handled it with intelligence and calm resolve. After the meeting, residents approached Liam, offering congratulations, support, and even assistance in further rebuilding. Families who had stayed at the resort in the past expressed relief and admiration. Volunteers who had helped carry beams and plant gardens smiled, proud of what they had contributed. Liam felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had not only saved his resort but also restored faith in fairness and truth within the community. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Liam and Anna walked through the nearly completed cabins. Smoke from the old fire had long disappeared, replaced by the scent of fresh wood, earth, and flowers. Liam looked at the cabins and the pathways, feeling a quiet pride in what they had accomplished. Anna smiled and said softly, "You turned tragedy into something incredible. The community sees it too." Liam nodded, his eyes scanning the new cabins. "This isn't just about cabins. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. And it's about showing that determination and truth can overcome fear and intimidation." That night, Liam finally rested. He thought about the fire, the threats, and the months of rebuilding. Every obstacle had strengthened him, teaching patience, strategy, and courage. The HOA had underestimated him, but he had faced them with calm intelligence and evidence. As he looked out over the quiet resort, stars reflecting on the nearby creek, Liam whispered to himself, "This is just the beginning. They thought they could break me, but they were wrong. Now, we have a future, and it will be stronger than ever." The resort, once destroyed by fire and fear, now stood as a symbol of resilience, courage, and determination. Liam knew challenges might come again, but he also knew that with preparation, truth, and community support, no obstacle was too great. Weeks passed after the HOA meeting, and Liam's resort began to feel alive once more. The cabins were nearly complete, their wooden walls polished and sturdy, and the stone pathways glistened in the morning dew. Flowers bloomed in bright colors, and the air was filled with the laughter of children playing near the creek. Liam felt a quiet satisfaction. The resort was more beautiful than ever, and it was safe from sabotage, thanks to careful planning and extra safety measures. But Liam knew he could not be complacent. The HOA was still watching, and although the community now supported him, some members of the HOA remained stubborn. Liam decided to take the next step. He wanted to secure the resort's future and prevent any further attempts at intimidation. With Anna's help, he began drafting a formal complaint to the town council, detailing the HOA's financial mismanagement and their repeated attempts to sabotage his property. Every piece of evidence was carefully organized, every incident clearly described, and every witness statement included. Anna looked over the documents one evening. "This is impressive, Liam. No one can ignore this." Liam nodded, his eyes serious. "It has to be clear and undeniable. If the town council sees this, the HOA will have no power over us." He had learned that truth, presented calmly and thoroughly, was stronger than anger or confrontation. Meanwhile, volunteers continued to work on the resort. Families helped plant trees and flowers, local carpenters fixed the cabins, and children assisted by carrying small bundles of wood or watering plants. The community's support had grown stronger with every passing day. People admired Liam's patience and determination, and they were willing to help him in any way they could. One afternoon, while inspecting the fireproof materials installed around the cabins, Liam noticed a small group of HOA members standing at a distance, observing quietly. They no longer tried to intimidate him. Their previous confidence had been replaced with uncertainty. Liam met their gaze steadily. He did not need to speak. His calm confidence and the visible progress of the resort were enough to show them that their threats would no longer work. Robert, the HOA member who had secretly sided with Liam, came to meet him that day. "They're worried," Robert said quietly. "They don't know how to respond." Liam smiled faintly. "Let them worry. Our focus is the resort and the community. They can't stop progress with fear anymore." Robert nodded, clearly relieved to see the resort thriving. As the weeks went on, Liam finalized plans for a grand reopening. He wanted to invite the community, volunteers, and even neighbors who had once doubted him. The event would celebrate resilience, unity, and the spirit of working together. It was also a subtle message to the HOA: intimidation and fear would not control anyone who chose honesty and hard work. The day of the reopening arrived. Bright banners fluttered in the breeze, cabins were freshly polished, and tables were set with local food and drinks. Residents began to arrive, greeting Liam with smiles, handshakes, and words of encouragement. The atmosphere was warm and celebratory, a stark contrast to the tension of months ago. During the event, Liam took a moment to speak to the crowd. "This resort was once destroyed by fire and threatened by fear," he began, his voice calm but firm. but it has been rebuilt through determination, honesty, and the support of our community. We faced challenges, but we did not give up. This resort belongs to all of us, and it will always be a place of joy and peace." Applause filled the air. Families cheered, volunteers clapped, and even some neighbors who had once sided with the HOA nodded in approval. Liam felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The resort was not only restored, but it had also become a symbol of resilience and unity. Later that evening, as the sun set over Maple Creek, Liam walked through the cabins with Anna. "We did it," she said softly. Liam looked around, seeing the laughter of children, the smiles of families, and the pride in the eyes of volunteers. "We did more than rebuild cabins," he replied. "We rebuilt trust, community, and strength. Nothing can take this away from us now." He thought about the HOA. Their power had been exposed and weakened. Their attempts to intimidate and control had failed. Liam knew they would think twice before ever threatening him again. And if they tried, he was prepared with evidence, allies, and the support of the entire community. That night, Liam sat on the porch of the main cabin, listening to the gentle sounds of the creek and the distant laughter of families. For the first time since the fire, he felt completely at peace. Months of hard work, challenges, and planning had brought him to this moment. The resort was safe, the community was stronger, and the HOA could no longer harm him. Liam whispered to himself, "We faced fear, we faced destruction, and we faced threats. But through honesty, patience, and determination, we overcame everything. This is just the beginning of a bright future." And with that thought, he finally allowed himself to rest, knowing that the resort, his dream, and the community he had built would thrive for years to come. Months had passed since the reopening of Liam's resort, and life at Maple Creek had returned to a peaceful rhythm. The cabins were now fully complete, stronger, and more beautiful than ever. Stone pathways wound through colorful flower beads, and the creek sparkled under the sun. Children's laughter echoed through the trees, and families enjoyed quiet afternoons on the porches. Liam often walked among them, quietly observing the joy he had helped create. It was more than a resort, it was a place of healing, resilience, and hope. The HOA, once confident and threatening, had become cautious and silent. Their failed attempts to intimidate Liam had weakened their influence. Even the previously stern Mrs. Fairbanks avoided direct confrontation, speaking only in careful, measured tones at meetings. Liam knew she and the others were aware that their actions had been exposed and that the town council had records of their mismanagement. The balance of power had shifted, and it felt good. Liam spent his mornings supervising the last details of the resort final landscaping, checking the cabins for safety, and ensuring that every guest would feel welcome and safe. Anna was there beside him, organizing schedules, handling supplies, and coordinating with local families who wanted to help. Together, they had created a thriving environment where the community worked in harmony and enjoyed the fruits of their labor. One afternoon, a group of HOA members arrived at the resort, hesitant and careful. They were there, Liam learned, to formally apologize. They admitted that their actions had been wrong, that they had tried to use fear and intimidation instead of fairness. Liam listened quietly, his calm demeanor unwavering. He nodded. "I accept your apology," he said. "But remember, respect and honesty are not optional. They are essential. If you want to be part of this community, it must be fair for everyone." The HOA members left, humbled, and a sense of relief settled over Liam. The threat was finally neutralized. He realized that it was not anger or confrontation that had won the day, it was patience, planning, and the courage to act with integrity. The resort had become a symbol of these qualities, and the community recognized it. That evening, Liam and Anna decided to host a small celebration for everyone who had helped rebuild the resort. Volunteers, families, and neighbors gathered on the main lawn, sharing stories, laughter, and homemade food. Lanterns were hung along the pathways, casting a warm, soft glow across the cabins and gardens. Children ran among the lights, their happiness contagious, while adults shared smiles and words of gratitude. Liam stood quietly, watching the scene. He thought back to the fire, the threats, and the weeks of hard labor. Each challenge had tested him, pushed him to his limits, and yet, he had not given up. Every obstacle had been a lesson in patience, strategy, and determination. And now, seeing the resort filled with life, he knew it had all been worth it. Anna approached him with a tray of tea. "You did more than rebuild cabins," she said softly. "You rebuilt trust, community, and hope." Liam smiled, taking the cup. "We did it together. That's what made all the difference." He looked around at the happy faces, the cabins, and the flowing creek. "This resort will always stand as a place where people can find peace, no matter what challenges come." Later, as the lanterns flickered and the guests slowly left, Liam walked to the edge of the creek. He listened to the gentle sound of water flowing over stones, the same sound he had heard when he first bought the land. It reminded him of why he had started this journey, to create a place where people could feel safe, happy, and free. Despite everything, that dream had survived and now thrived. That night, Liam sat on the porch of the main cabin, looking at the stars reflected in the water. He thought about the months of struggle, the fire that had tried to destroy him, and the HOA members who had sought to intimidate him. But he also thought about the community, the volunteers, Anna, and the families who had supported him. They had all made the difference. With patience, determination, and honesty, he had turned a disaster into a triumph. He whispered to himself, "We faced fear, destruction, and doubt. But we stood strong. We rebuilt. And we showed that truth, hard work, and community will always win." In the days that followed, the resort grew even more popular. Guests returned with smiles, bringing friends and family to share in the peaceful environment. The cabins were booked, the gardens bloomed brighter, and the laughter of children echoed through the trees like music. Liam often walked among the guests, quietly happy, knowing that the place he had built would continue to bring joy and comfort to everyone who visited. And finally, for the first time since the fire, Liam allowed himself to rest completely. The resort was safe, the community was strong, and the HOA no longer posed a threat. His dream had not only survived, it had become a symbol of resilience, courage, and the power of standing firm for what is right. Liam looked out over Maple Creek one last time that evening, breathing in the cool, fresh air. The cabins glowed softly in the moonlight, the creek reflected the stars, and a gentle wind rustled the trees. He smiled quietly. The resort, the community, and his determination had triumphed. This was the legacy he had fought for, and it was finally secure. With a heart full of peace and satisfaction, Liam whispered one final time, "We did it. We survived. And now, nothing can ever take this away."